to order. If I could have those commissioners who are present stand, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Planner, if you could do a roll call.
Good evening. Chair Rosales.
Present.
Vice Chair Morrissey will note as absent at this time. Commissioner Goodkind is attending via Zoom, I believe.
Yes, I'm present. Thank you.
Commissioner Balma.
Present.
Commissioner Custer indicated she may not attend. She's not feeling well. We'll mark her as absent at this time. Commissioner Hayes
Present.
and Commissioner Rains. We don't see him on Zoom. So we'll mark him as absent at this time. So you do have 4 commissioners, which is all that you require for a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be brief in my housekeeping comments rather than reading the entire protocol, simply stating that due to applicable public health orders, the city chambers are open to the public with masks required for unvaccinated individuals in all indoor areas of the city hall. If you want to participate via Zoom or via Zoom from a phone, that protocol can be found on the city's website under the planning department information as part of the front page of the agenda. I will then go to communication on matters not on the agenda. City Planner, any requests to speak on items not on tonight's agenda?
Mr. Chairman, we have no such requests.
Great, thank you. Moving then to approval of minutes from our last meeting, which was June 21st. I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Hayes?
I was wondering if it's possible to make one minor edit.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's on the second motion regarding the Melrose extension. If at the end, after it says no further engineering studies, clarify that that's prior to general plan mobility element adoption instead of forever and ever.
I'm sorry, I had to pull up the minutes, so if you could repeat that.
Sure, if at the end of it, you could just add after engineering studies, add prior to general plan mobility element adoption.
Okay, if that's the will of the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I'll phrase it that way. So any objections to that change made to the minutes by Commissioner Hayes? Commissioner Goodkind?
No, I'm fine with the change. Thank
Okay.
you, Commissioner Hayes.
Thank you. Commissioner Morrissey is joining us. Vice Chair Morrissey, welcome. We're approving the minutes, and Commissioner Hayes made a small modification. Are you fine with that, or?
I'm good.
Good, okay. And then Commissioner Balma?
I'm also good with it.
Thank you, and I too approve that. So those minutes should be approved, City Planner. Thank you. No items on tonight's consent calendar, nor any items under transportation items. So we will go to public hearings. Our first item, item 4, is consideration of a regular coastal permit and a variance request to allow a rear deck extension with stairs to encroach into the rear yard setback. Location is 25 St. Malo Beach. The applicant is Denise Tomlin. We'll do disclosures. I read the materials, familiar with the location. Commissioner Hayes, disclosures?
Also reviewed the staff report and drove by the site, but not really in the site.
Thank you. Commissioner Goodkind?
Yes, I read the staff report and I did get through the gate thanks to the handy Planning Commission business cards we were provided. And I did walk the site to the extent that was possible as well.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Morrissey?
So I did read the report. I was not as fortunate as Commissioner Goodkind. I did not breach the gate, but I am aware of the staff report.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bama?
I also received staff report, and I did a Google search.
Very good, thank you. Sergio Madera is our presenter tonight. Welcome, Sergio.
Thank you, Chairman Rosales, members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight is a request for a variance in regular coastal permit at 25 St. Malo. The project site is comprised of an existing approximately 7,500 square foot lot that's been developed with an approximately 4,500 square foot single family home. The existing land use designation of the site is single family detached residential. The local coastal program designation is low density residential, and the zoning designation is R1. Tonight, the Planning Commission is being asked to consider a coastal permit to allow the addition of a 122 square foot deck at the rear of the project site. It's coming to the Planning Commission because it is in the appeal jurisdiction of the coastal area. Also a variance request to ask for relief from the 10-foot required rear yard setback and to allow relief from the maximum 40% lot coverage. So this graphic depicts existing conditions which show the existing deck to encroach into the rear yard setback, and the existing lot coverage is already exceeded. The existing lot coverage is 44.6%, and with the proposed addition, it would be 45.9%. The existing deck encroaches anywhere from 4.5 feet into the 10-foot required rear yard setback, and as little as 7 inches into the required 10-foot rear yard setback. The proposed site plan here shows the, let me see if I can. The proposed encroachment would include a 106 square foot addition and access stairways to further encroach and increase coverage at the existing residence. Here are some side elevations of existing on the left and proposed on the right. Here's the opposite elevation showing existing conditions and the proposed stair access. And here is a rear elevation showing the addition. Again, the zoning ordinance requires a 10-foot rear yard setback, and with the proposed addition, it would be reduced to 4 feet 9 inches, representing an encroachment of 5 feet 3 inches, and an increase in the existing non-conforming coverage from 44% to just under 46%. So if staff has found that the project is inconsistent with the local coastal program, as it's not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood per policy 6C8, it does not meet the findings for a variance request as outlined in the staff report. So staff is recommending denial of the requested variance and coastal permit by adoption of resolution number 2021-P18. With that concludes the staff report. I'll be available for any questions that Planning Commission may have of staff.
Thank you, Sergio. Let the record show that Commissioner Custer has joined us. If you could give us your disclosures before we go to questions.
Read the staff report.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Madera? Go ahead.
Thank you. Sergio, I know I read in the staff report that something in the effect that that someone had asked about is if the staircase is required by code for evacuation. I think that's one of the statements from the applicant. Is there any safety issues or concerns we need to think about as far as that staircase providing something that the code would require of them?
Sure. So I think the response in the staff report outlines the fact that it went through the review process, the house was constructed without the need for secondary egress off that deck. It's not a fire code requirement that staff is familiar with.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice Chair Morrissey?
So, Sergio, did you get any responses either for or against this proposal?
We
from the
did,
neighbors?
the previous staff, Veronica Moronis, who processed the application, did receive one letter in opposition and one letter in support of the project. Those were appended to the staff report. But the applicant apparently submitted 26 letters of support with the initial submittal, but I don't have any record of that as I didn't prepare.
So the applicant gave you 26 letters of support,
Apparently.
but we don't know that to be a fact?
I just found out about 8 minutes ago before the meeting started.
Okay. And if we were to approve this, how would that work for future variances? Would we, I mean, you know, you hear, well, if you let so-and-so do it, then
Sure.
I want to do it. Would we always be able to have a say in whether we approve a variance or not?
Absolutely. Each variance is considered on an individual basis. Each project is unique. It is, to some extent, precedent setting in the fact that often variances, applications for variances, they point to other variances that have been granted for similar items. It's, you know, there's no hardship presented here in the application that staff received and reviewed. The zoning regulations are pretty straightforward and standard. There's no irregularity in topography or lot size that would require this variance for anything to be developed at the site. The site has developed a 4,500 square foot house, over 4,500 square foot house with an existing exterior deck that already encroaches into the rear yard setback, of which we don't know why or how that came to be. And so this is, we do know that the zoning ordinance in our non-conforming article, I believe it's Article 35, discourages and doesn't allow for intensifications of nonconformities. So both of these would represent intensifications of nonconformities, including the coverage and the rear yard setback.
But the bottom line is, if we were, let's just say we were to approve this tonight, we still, if somebody has a variance, we still get a look.
Absolutely. Every variance would have to come to the Planning Commission for approval.
And last question, so there was one letter that was against. I haven't seen that. Maybe it's out there. Do you have it?
Yeah, it's part of the staff report. It was attachment number 4.
All right.
I can give you a copy of it.
Scott, can you take the presentation down? That way I can see Commissioner Goodkind.
This is the letter.
Thanks.
Support. It's like a 3-page email.
Okay.
And then there's one letter. I'm sorry, opposition, one letter in support.
All right, thanks, Joe. That's all, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, if I could elaborate on Sergio's comments. It's absolutely true. Each variance is unique and each rests on its own case. As he said, it's very common, and we had a variance application just a few months ago where the applicant pointed to other variances and other applications and used that as their argument. I think that the biggest issue is that you have to present findings, and so it's very difficult for us to produce those findings in this case. In most variances. So if you do go down that road, just keep that in mind, that we'll be asking you to present your findings.
Yeah, thank you for that. I don't think the other commissioners, Sergio, got a copy of the letters that Vice Chair Morrissey has in his hand. Do we have extra copies, or?
Could certainly run and make some copies. They were,
Maybe we can just share it here. Commissioner Goodkind, you wouldn't have the ability to see what we're seeing. Is it?
That's okay. When you're ready, I have a couple questions.
Yeah. Go right ahead, actually.
Okay. Sergio, do we have any input on the opinion of either the St. Malo HOA or the neighbor directly behind this house?
This letter's from the HOA.
Commissioner Goodkind, members of the Planning Commission. So the applicant did receive approval or support from the HOA initially, and their letter is depicted on the plans that were distributed to the Planning Commission. At some point, a representative of the HOA rescinded that support and left it up to the cities to work out with the applicant. And I'm not sure that that letter actually represented the full architectural review committee of the St. Malo Association, or if it was just that one individual. There was correspondence that indicated it was just that one individual acting on their own. So we didn't present that information to the Planning Commission because it's inconclusive and not definitive. We have not heard from in my recollection and the information that I have, we have not heard from the property owner that abuts the property to the south. We have heard from a property owner that butts it to, I believe, I'm not sure if it's to the east or the west. They're at 23 St. Malo, and that's one of the pieces of correspondence that was included in the staff report.
I think that's to the west, if I recall. So when I was there today, Sergio, I noticed that there's a lot of like construction paper already all over this house. And I'm just wondering if there's work that's already underway, even though this hasn't been approved yet.
So as outlined in the staff report, this home was subject of a significant renovation that was just approvable at the staff level, didn't include an expansion of the existing footprint. So that's perhaps what you were seeing.
Okay.
The applicant's representative is here, and perhaps they can address that topic.
Yeah, I'll hold my other questions until after the applicant has spoken. Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. We do have, I believe, Sergio, you said the applicant or their representative, they'd like to come forward and provide some comments or a presentation. If you could introduce yourself, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Denise Tomlin. I'm the architect for the project. And I feel I wanted to thank you for taking the time to review this application. And I'm sorry that some of you haven't had the chance to sort of get in there and really sort of see what San Malo is about, because it truly is a very unique situation. And I think that what we're asking for is really very minor in the grand scheme of things. So if you'll just bear with me for a second, I'm going to give you a little bit of history on San Malo, if you would find that to be helpful. So it was originally developed in 1929, which predated, any sort of zoning code, and was annexed by San Malo in 1950. So there's now about 100 homes, about 80 behind the gate, and I don't know, I'm going to say 100 or maybe 10 or 15 outside the gate. The original French Normandy design aesthetic has been protected from the inception since an internal set of CC&Rs. And any renovations that affect the exterior of the homes have to go through the San Malo Review Board and get approved. And that process is prior to us sort of submitting anything to the city, if we need to do that. So we are obviously in that situation here. So the strict standard of architectural style and materials have always invoked the sense that the buildings have been there for decades and that they're subject to, the seaside kind of conditions, which means that everything is kind of weathered and old looking. So the guidance of the San Malo Design Review Board has performed this successfully for almost 100 years to define, preserve, and guide the evolution of this very special community. So I'm here to respond to the staff recommendation and for the expansion of the Southern Terrace, explain our thoughts, and answer any questions regarding our request. One of the reasons that San Malo is unique is that many of the houses are organized around these interior courtyards. And typically the stairways to the bedrooms are off of these courtyards. So the courtyards are actually kind of hard to use because they have a lot of circulation going through them and they're fairly small. Some of them are big enough to hold a pool, but many of them are really sort of too small for that. So any other exterior space that can be used for dining, sitting, entertaining is kind of at a premium, especially anything that has a view of the ocean. So in this particular house is one of a handful that are on a downslope lot that has spectacular views to the south and to the west. There are similar properties to the east and one to the west. So this one has an interior courtyard as well, with no views, and the south terrace that we're trying to expand, or hope to expand, is the most inviting and desirable exterior space. Move here to my notes. So we're asking for this variance to allow for a more spacious terrace for a fairly large house and generational gatherings for an extended family of 12. And frankly, after the last 16 months of isolation and anxiety, I think anything that we can do to sort of facilitate family gatherings is something we should consider. We're asking for not only the extension of the terrace, but we are asking for the stairway to connect the upper and lower terrace as well. It is not required by the building department. However, the building department standards are kind of a minimum standard of requirements. And we feel, or I feel, that it would be a good thing to have secondary exit from both those spaces in case it were ever necessary. So responding to the staff report, we are exceeding the lot coverage by 1.3%. This house was already overbuilt for that lot when my client bought it. We are not, just to be clear, we are not looking to increase the habitable space of the house at all. And this lot coverage is basically for the cantilevered portion of this deck, which doesn't even touch the ground. So technically, it's not really, in my opinion, it's not really a lot coverage issue because the landscaping underneath it still is there and contributes to the overall landscape coverage for the house. There's no increase in mass to the house. It's only an increase in the deck area. And you won't even notice this deck when the landscaping is all in place. And two, we're in this position because it's an elevated terrace. If this were at grade, this would not be an issue at all. So the San Malo Design Review Board has reviewed the project and believes the proposed terrace extension to be consistent with the design, aesthetic, and integrity of the community. That letter has not been rescinded, to my knowledge, and we do have 26 letters of support, which we're going to have to find because they were definitely submitted to the City of Oceanside original package. And one of the letters is the neighbor that is directly to the south, and he would be greatly, the one that would be most affected by this extension. So when I design something or bring something before you, I always think about the intent of the code, which is really to preserve density, scale, and safety. And we feel that our request doesn't violate any of those principles, nor does it present any life safety issues or establish a precedent for the city as a whole, as this is within a private community and has been internally reviewed and approved for conformance. So I hope that you take these items into consideration this evening while evaluating this request, and we certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Tomlin. Any questions for go ahead, Vice Chair.
So Mr. Zapata, he is the homeowner to the south that's complaining?
No, he is actually to the east.
Okay, but he says that, I guess my question is, who is being affected by this issue? I mean, is somebody's view actually being obstructed?
No, and in fact, there was a 50-foot-high eucalyptus tree on this property that we removed because it was damaging the foundation of the existing terrace and was a major fire hazard. So we took down that tree, which opened up the view of that neighbor to the east. And this deck, and I have been on their deck before during the design process to actually see what their view corridor is. And this deck extension in my opinion, opens up their view. It doesn't close down at all.
So I don't understand why this person's complaining then.
Well, I'll be honest with you, we don't either, and we have tried to communicate with him directly, and that's not been terribly successful, but were you to go and stand on his deck?
Sorry?
Were you to go and stand on his deck, I think that you would agree that there is no obstruction to his view. You know, and we were careful about that, because nobody wants anything taken away.
And the homeowners association, I'm reading his letter, and it says the homeowners association is not a legal HOA. So it sounds to me like this person is looking for whatever reason they can to not have this go forward. Is there a legal HOA?
I don't know the answer to that, honestly.
Okay, all right.
And I can't speculate on what somebody's reasons are for.
But the HOA did approve this?
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Correct. Whatever, the San Malo Design Review Board, which is what, I have gone through, and I've worked on other projects in there. So anytime we make any change to the exterior, we bring it before them. For instance, on this house, this was the third time that we went to them.
Okay.
So we had some window changes, round one, then something else, then this. So they have had the opportunity to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Just for clarification, I think you already stated this, or staff might have, that this house that you your applicant purchased was pretty much as is. The existing deck and the rec room underneath that actually crosses over into the setback were already built some other time. In the city, I think in the staff report said that the records didn't really show any variances or anything else that came up that you could find that house had to go through. So I guess like you were saying, that a lot of the stuff just happened out there because it just happened. It's a private community, and things just seem to just get built.
Well, when the original subdivision in 1929, so as I said before, that sort of predated all of these zoning codes. And, it was a beach community, honestly. People sort of built their houses. Nobody really worried about where the property lines were. Fences went up here. Decks went up here. Every single house is non-conforming in some way. Like the whole west wall of this house is within the now 5-foot yard setback. Mm-hmm. And, I've worked on other houses that I said in there, and every single one is not every single one, but there's a high likelihood that some element of a lot of these houses is not conforming.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So the entire community is non-conforming.
Well, I don't mean to bring this to your attention in a bad way, but, it's the history of
that's
this
actually
place.
helpful as I'm kind of trying to work this through my own head.
They're trying to get through prohibition.
Question for you from me on the Architectural Review Committee. Is the tendency of that committee to look at more the exterior, the windows, and make sure it conforms with sort of the architectural standard in the community? Or do they also consider and or take on issues related to this outdoor space that you refer to, living space outside? In other words, what I'm trying to say is, do they let those sort of things go and they focus a little bit more on the architectural standards, the windows and so forth? Or maybe they don't even touch on these outdoor deck and outdoor living spaces. So just give me maybe some context for what they pay attention to, if you will.
I mean, that's hard for me to know because it's part of their internal review process, but they are, as I said, very concerned about maintaining the integrity of San Malo, which, means materials. So yes, it means, what kind of windows, what color the windows are, the cedar shakes on the roof, the timbering on the sides, all the things that make that community unique. They control the weather vanes, they control the fireplaces, and anything, quote unquote, anything that affects the exterior is of concern to them.
So I'm just paraphrasing what you're saying and trying to figure out kind of where they may land on something that encroaches on a setback. Maybe that isn't a less important thing to them as opposed to the architectural standards. Sounds like you don't know that. I'm just kind of verbalizing what I'm trying to take in from your commentary.
Again, hard for me to speculate on what they're looking at because they're, but, again, their role is to review the aesthetic of it in the context of the entire community.
Okay, any other questions, Commissioners?
Yes.
I have one too.
Let me go to Commissioner Custer, and then I'll come right back to you, Commissioner Kukai. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So my question is simply that the Architectural Review Board is aware that it's encroaching on the setback, correct?
Yes, that was part of the submitted plan.
So it's apparently fine with them in the fact that they passed it. They would have, normally, under normal circumstances, they would say you have to bring it back 2 feet before we'll approve it or something of that measure, I would assume, correct?
I would assume that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Goodkind.
Well, Sergio said that they rescinded it, so it would be nice to get, clarification on that issue. I was just wondering if somebody could read the letter from the neighbor, because I don't have it in front of me, and it sounds like it's pertinent.
Yeah, go ahead. Vice Chair Morrissey has it. He's going to go ahead and.
So Commissioner Goodkind, so this is from Jay, I guess I better turn my mic on.
Closer to your mic, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Goodkind. So this email is from Jay Zapata dated January 24th, and it's to Tiffany Chen. And it says, "Hi, Tiffany, Happy New Year. Hope this email finds you enjoying good health. As you know, I'm following up closely the construction at my neighbor's house at 25 San Malo Beach, especially their outdoor deck extension that affects all neighbors towards the east side, view to the ocean, which is our right. I'm aware that their request to extend the deck was denied by your office during the planning approval process last year, but in case you didn't know, they built the deck within the setback anyways, thinking they can still get away with it. And your office issued a violation notice during construction. Now they are trying to apply for a variance and send out a letter for neighbors to sign for their support. I believe they're scheduled to have a meeting with you on Tuesday, January 26th. And I just want to clarify a few things first. Number one, we do not have a legal HOA formed. Therefore, their architectural committee approval is not legally binding. Also, this committee does not have design professional advisor, and everything gets approved most of the time. Item two, neighbors directly affected with this deck extension within the setback are not in support of this deck extension because it affects our view to the ocean from our decks. Also, will not sign the support letter the owners at number 25 are requesting. The letters you might receive signed in support of this project might be by neighbors that are not directly affected by this project, maybe by neighbors located towards the west of their property where their views of the ocean are not affected. I hope this helps clarify our community desire to maintain our existing character and prevent code violations. As always, feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thanks, Jay Zapata, AIA Lead AP BD plus C, Z Proud Architecture Within Reach. And they're located in San Gabriel, California, and blah, blah.
Thank you, Vice Chair Morrissey. So then I guess I have a follow-up question for Sergio, if we're back to staff.
Yes, go ahead.
Sergio, what is the accuracy of that explanation about the violations?
Commissioner Goodkind, members of the Planning Commission, it's my understanding that the deck extension came to staff's attention through the plan check review process. That's why that email was directed to Tiffany Chen, who used to be a planner in our office, who did the plan check and approved the improvement plans with the exception of the deck extension.
So were there violations issued by the city per that letter from the neighbor?
Commissioner Goodkind, I believe I'm speculating right now, I have to verify the record, but it's my understanding, and the record is available, it's my understanding that perhaps construction commenced without permits and they came in for permits.
Yeah, Okay,
Then I misspoke. That is not accurate.
okay.
The applicant is saying it's not accurate. I don't have the record in front of me, and I'd have to log into our system, our database, to see if any violations were sanctioned against that property.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Tomlin, can you add to that, or?
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear that we have done absolutely no work without a permit. And somebody did call suspecting that we were doing some, and I was there the day that the enforcement person came out, and we reiterated that we were not doing any work without a permit. Nor was anything denied by the planning approval process. We have done everything by the book, and I have always done everything by the book, so there was no reason to believe that that was happening. It is a very difficult site. And there is, once the scaffolding went up to sort of redo the roof and redo all the exterior plaster, the contractor did put out some framing on the existing deck so that he could use it for staging. So it did increase the deck. But we always knew, and we made it very clear to the city, that that was only for staging purposes, that we were going through the proper channels, and if this were not approved, that we would pull that deck back. And we made that very clear to all the existing neighbors so that nobody would get upset about what was going on out there. But as I said, it was a very difficult site. It's a difficult site to work in. So there's a number of misinformation in this letter. And I wrote a response to this, which should be in the city's record as well, to clarify these points. So we can go back and get you a copy of that if necessary.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff or the applicant at this point?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question of the applicant?
Absolutely.
So I heard you say that if it's not approved, you will pull the deck back. Is that what you just said?
Right.
So the deck is existing?
It is there as staging purposes for construction, because we needed the additional space, because there was scaffolding on all sides and all sides of the interior. So there was just, some plywood that was thrown out over the joists so that we could put materials. And we can give you photos of that so that you could see what needed to happen during construction for the other items to commit.
there is a structure that was constructed that if this variance is denied, you would remove that.
Yes, much like you would put, we had plywood out on the, on the grade areas as well, to store lumber, because there was no place to put it on the site. Couldn't put it in the courtyard. The decks were being waterproofed.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I think for the moment we have no more questions. We'll go to the public. Staff, any requests to speak on this item?
We have no speakers on this item.
No speakers, thank you. So we will close the public hearing, the public input portion anyway, and bring it back to the commission for further discussion. Scott, I'm sorry, can I get Commissioner Goodkind's face back on the screen here? Just so I can.
Since you've put my face up.
There we go.
Start. It seems to me like there's just missing pieces of information. We don't have the 26 letters. We don't know for sure whether the HOA rescinded. And by the way, regardless of what the HOA does, this is all still subject to city ordinances. I've seen HOAs do all kinds of things, but still the city has the final say. So it seems to me like we're just missing some information, and I'm really not prepared to disagree with staff's recommendation without additional missing pieces. That's kind of where I'm at.
No, thank you for that input. I'm kind of actually at the same place. So Any other commissioners want to weigh in on or add something to that?
Just to ask staff, because this is in a special area governed by its own HOA, it's still, like I think Commissioner Goodkind stated, that it still goes by the same city rules. So that means if we set a precedent with this variance and let this go, that means anybody in that area could then also submit variances based on that we gave a variance that exceeded lot coverage by 5% or more, even though it was existing. It was only 1% that you're asking for, but even the whole entire site, plus the idea of adding the staircase, and when it's really not needed by code. I don't know. It just seems like it's kind of a slippery slope. So, and I know we've had people since I've been on this commission that want to do things in the city, and they'll come back and they'll cite each one of these that says, well, they got it, so I need to get mine too. And we'll have a lot of that to like go back and say, oh, well, that was different because they were in St. Malo and it's kind of a different little world there and they could do whatever they want to do. Well, it's kind of like slippery. It's kind of a slippery slope. So I'm just kind of on the fence.
Vice Chair Morrissey?
So the way I look at it is that the lot coverage was missed when they built the place, number one. So back in 1929, who cared? But who cared was the people that developed this property in 1929 and the people around them. And when I look at this, what means a lot to me is what was the intent of the people either at that time or there now. And the fact that what I heard is that the HOA, whatever it is, this letter states that it's not legally formed, but I believe there is, if there's not an architectural review, there's an HOA, something. The fact that they reviewed it, they're boots on the ground. And the fact that they approved it, to me, seems like, you know, why not let somebody enjoy their property? And it sounds trite, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But if it's not obstructing anybody's view, who cares? I mean, so we have a law. Well, we have variances to deal with every situation. So if they want to enjoy their property, why not let them? If it's not hurting anybody. So that's how I see it. So I'm going to vote against the staff recommendation on this one.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or?
Well, I have, do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. I'm kind of in line with both, Chairman and Robin, in that there's just not enough information right now. I do feel uncomfortable not having the letters. They weren't attached to our staff reports. So, and not really understanding what the HOA really said. It would be great if we could get an HOA representative here or some kind of more formal letter than the copy of the one that I saw just a second ago for the first time. But to the point that this is, it seems like a minor addition and it seems like just stair access. So I was curious from staff perspective, does the city ever do anything? And I've seen this in a lot of coastal areas where they're concerned about view sheds. They'll put up like sticks with like fluorescent type of, almost like what you'd see in a used parking lot, flags. So they can tell the neighbors next door would be able to see if that would actually encroach on their view. Do we do something like that here in a case like this if there is a concern about view obstruction?
Chair and Commissioners, the city doesn't require story poles is the professional term that's used. Other cities do. Del Mar is infamous for it, or famous for it, depending on how you look at it. You do have the ability to ask for additional information, including something like that. Usually with bigger projects, we ask for a computer rendering or something like that, which is intended to give the same effect. Without having to put up the story poles. Again, this is a single-family home, so we don't normally ask for renderings with single families, view shed renderings, but it's up to the commission.
Commissioner Hayes and members of the Planning Commission, I'd like to provide a point of clarification. So the HOA letter that's been referred to as approving the design is included on the cover sheet of the plans that were transmitted to you. In that letter, it talks about some minor modifications to corbels and windows. It does not at all address the encroachment topic or the coverage topic for clarification. There was a subsequent letter, and I don't have conjecture up here and talk out of turn, that sort of said those issues are between the applicant and the city. And so because we couldn't confirm the authenticity of that letter in the short time that we've had that information, we didn't provide it to the Planning Commission because we thought it would create more confusion as opposed to providing clarification.
Thank you. I agree too that, I mean, it's a pretty minor addition, but if we kind of go along with the idea that we're going to allow another variance, and I'm all for somebody being able to develop their property as they see fit within the guidelines, but if we go along with the idea of another variance on a community that seems to have a tradition of just kind of doing things as they will, then that does butt up against the city standards and the codes of the city, which they're subject to. And if the HOA or the architect review committee is only interested in the windows and the doors and the structure itself and not so much about setback, then we kind of dovetail to what Sergio just said, and that is the city standards for setbacks and all of those things. I think the review committee has made that clear. So that's kind of where I'm left. So which do we fall back to? We fall back to the city standards, and do we allow variances? Yeah, sure, some cases, but where do we draw the line and say no more variances, because it does set a precedence, and then somebody can leverage that later on. So that's kind of where I am with this particular item.
And I have one question of clarification, because I'm a little uncertain about are there multiple violations actually occurring where we know that construction has happened without permits that's created these non-conforming conditions, or are those non-conforming conditions just the fact that it was built before the zoning code and it didn't really fit in to any of the zoning code requirements that were established for the rest of the city?
Chairman and Commissioners, we would have to do an analysis of the subdivision, but I would assume, given the date of the original subdivision and then the subsequent adoption of the zoning, that a lot of the nonconformities resulted as a result of the zoning being placed on it at that time.
Okay, thank you. And that's what I was trying to clarify, is that it doesn't sound like there's a lot of illegal activity currently occurring in there. So this is going through the proper channels of requesting a variance, and that the concern of approving it would be that you're setting a precedent for other similar requests to occur within the same community?
I believe the concern with the precedent is a legitimate one, but as I said earlier, the law requires the decision makers in approving a variance to make findings, and we could read those findings to you if that would help, but that's really what you should focus on. Sergio, do you have, or do you want me to read them, or?
We have them here. We could put them up on the screen, or I could go ahead and read them, whatever's easier. And maybe I could read them first.
Sergio, go ahead and put them up on the screen, and I'm going to allow Commissioner Custer to ask a question. I know you wanted to make a comment.
Well, I just want to make a comment that I'm in favor of, at the moment, of allowing this, because it seems that most of the items in the letter, the only letter that we have that's opposed, if the 26 letters in support do exist, then we only have one letter opposed. And most of the items, the reason for their opposition are actually not existent, not truly issues, because the HOA, in whatever format it is, did approve it. It doesn't block their view, and there are many letters in support, including the one neighbor next door. And it seems to me that we have granted variances for more controversial issues than this one. So for those reasons, I'm leaning towards allowing the site to vote for the addition. Oh, I did have one question.
Yes.
Okay. The deck that was built for the staging, was it built in the same quality that a permanent deck would be built, or just built obviously as a temporary staging?
It was built originally as temporary staging with kind of a plywood surface on it. And to Ms. Hayes, to address your issue of the story poles, we actually used that platform as kind of a story pole issue with neighbors and invited them to come by and take a look at it and see what the effect was on the property and what people thought about it. So we did kind of that mock-up, and we're very transparent about what, the reality of it would be. So I think that was something that we accomplished sort of, without the city's direction. Because, it's to sort of understand this community, like most of these houses go from generation to generation. So for instance, my clients, both their families bought houses in there in the 1950s. So they have grown up there. And people's kids have grown up there. And now people's grandkids are coming. So it is a really close group of people. And everybody is concerned about maintaining that kind of community aspect to it. So, nobody is really going to try to do anything that's going to make themselves an outlier and make all the neighbors, really irritated at them. And so that's kind of, it's an important component of that community. And, if there's any other information that we can provide, the 26 letters, we can get you a blow up and a large copy of the approval approval letter from the review board. I'm happy to walk any of you through it, to sort of explain what we're doing. Any of that can happen.
To that point that you just brought up, I mean, Commissioners Goodkind and Hayes have cited how they feel because there's just not enough information. Do the 26 letters exist or do they not? Does the HOA exist or does it not? This letter I just read is from an architect. He's got no skin in the game. He doesn't live there. That is what I look at.
Well, agreed.
And so my question to you is, if we were as a group to say, look, we're gonna stand down on this until we'll revisit again. I don't know procedurally how that works, until you bring the things up that maybe would satisfy Commissioners Goodkind and Hayes's issues with approving this. Would you do that?
Yes, I would be willing to continue the item. The letters are in your file. I submitted them myself. I know that they're there.
Sergio doesn't look quite as confident that they're there.
It's beyond me. The person who processed this application is one of the most thorough planners I've ever worked with, and to omit 26 letters of support would be very highly unusual. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm not sure that we have them, but we can certainly check.
Okay.
Well, do you have copies of them to resubmit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole PDF file.
Is that something, I guess this is a question for Chair and for
Yes.
Director Hunt. Could we postpone this till we have more information?
Yes, we could do all sorts of things, so including a continuation. Any other questions, Commissioner Goodkind? Any parting thoughts maybe before we do a motion?
I have one parting thought.
Hang on a sec. Commissioner Goodkind?
My only parting thought is I've heard everybody's opinion. I think everybody's opinions are valid. I'm a little bit on the fence. I agree with Commissioner Morrissey. People should have the right to enjoy their property as they see fit. I also do believe in the rule of law. And, there are rules and we're supposed to have findings if we issue variances. There's seems to be, if not a dispute, then certainly confusion about missing letters of support. It's unclear whether there was a rescission from the HOA. So for those reasons, I probably would support a continuation and would be happy to make a motion for that if somebody if you guys would like.
Yeah, hold that idea, that motion. I'm going to go to Commissioner Balma first.
Yes, my parting thought was basically out of the 100 homes or so that we were told are in St. Malo's privy, that 26 letters were issued in favor. I would be very interested to see where those letters and who those people were, because if they are the gentleman that's just to the east of this house, and I don't know if he's the architect or the owner, and he's against it, that's the view that we're blocking is his, so, or hers, or whoever
Well,
the person owns the house. So I would like to have, if we're going to go put, postpone this decision, I definitely would like to see the addresses of those 26 letters in favor, how they play out with this particular resident. Because if it's people that are like outside the gates or far away, they don't have any, they're just friends, I understand, and I totally agree with you on people should be able to do what, I'm all with you on that, but it's just, we also have, the variance has findings, and you have to kind of look at that when you base your decisions, or it's going to come back to bite you in the butt, and believe me, it does. When you say yes to someone for just because you decided, well, this is the way I feel today, well, 2 months from now, you're going to get the same guy coming here asking for the same thing. Maybe the next door neighbor is going to want to put his deck out, and you're going to have a whole
What's interesting
bunch
to
of
me
things to
is
talk
that guy that wrote the letter,
Yeah.
or that's in opposition,
Yeah.
isn't here tonight, and he had an architect write it for him.
Okay.
So, for those reasons, I would support Commissioner Goodkind's motion.
And for what it's worth, I'd like to see something a little bit more robust from this design committee, whatever it might be, that says, hey, we love this or we don't, and this is our structure, and these are the sort of things we look at. I don't know if that exists or whatnot, but some name attached to, yes, thumbs up or thumbs down. Something that kind of defines what this group does, other than windows and roofs and so forth, that says we consider other things too. So for whatever that's worth, I'd like to see something along those lines as something that comes back to us to take a look at. So Commissioner Goodkind, I think you teed up the idea of a motion, so why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I'll make a motion and feel free to offer revisions. I would just move to continue this item until we have additional information, including but not limited to letters of support, clarification on the position of the homeowners association, clarification from the city as to whether there are existing violations, and anything else that might be relevant to our determination. That is my motion.
Thank you. I think that pretty well captures what we're all battering around up here. Anybody want to add anything to that, or we go with that motion?
No, that's good. I'll second that.
Okay, so we like your motion. We have a second from Vice Chair Morrissey. Any further discussion?
I just have one question, and I don't know if this is common, but is it possible for us to actually go to the deck and see it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that would be my request, is if we could actually go there and understand.
Take your card, because you won't get in the gate without it.
But we can't even get into the back of the property to see the deck.
I will be happy to get you into the gates
Okay.
and show you. But I do have a question. So when you say existing violations, is that against this property, or are you talking about within
Yeah.
San Malo?
No, I would like clarification on whether, on the history of violations, recent history, like past 3 years, for this property, if there's city cited violations.
Okay.
I would just say that that's pretty big task, so I think
Well, it
Commissioner
shouldn't be.
Goodkind,
No, I mean, if there are none, there are none in the past 3 or 4 years.
It would be very simple
It's-
for us to check our database to see if there's
Just a
any
little
violations.
query and, yeah.
I'm talking the whole neighborhood.
No, not the entire neighborhood,
Okay.
just this one property, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion. I think staff, you've captured that pretty well, and a second. Any further dialogue? No, and I think there's also an interest, if we can get in and see
Yes.
the actual property, that would be helpful too. Individually, I would imagine we can make arrangements. So that all being said, let's go around the table and take a vote. I'll start with you, Commissioner Custer.
Yes.
Chair Hayes? Vice Chair Morrissey?
yes?
Commissioner Balma?
Yes.
And maker of the motion, Commissioner Goodkind?
Yes.
I too am a yes.
Mr. Chairman, we'll record that as 6 in favor, 0 against. The motion passes. We'll continue it to, well, let's talk a little bit about logistics. If we continue to a date certain, then we don't have to re-advertise it, and that saves the applicant money, and it's just easier. I'm not sure we can do all this in 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Is that fair? And I'm just throwing out ideas.
2 weeks seems reasonable. I mean, we have all the information. We have the letters of support. I mean, there's nothing new. We just have to get it into your hands. So the only thing that is tricky is the site visits. And is that something that I can just ask, is that something that you do, each one of you do individually?
We can't have more than 2 at a time, is that right?
We can't meet as a group more than
We can go in twos.
40. Three.
Three.
We're getting the three fingers
some sort of
from
mob
city
rule?
attorney. Three.
Sort of mob rule thing that you can't like three.
No, it's called the Brown Act. We can't make decisions or scene together, you know, 3 people talking about an item. So it's called the Browns Act.
The only thing is I will just have to make arrangements with the guards to get you in. So I just wanted to know kind of what I'm up against, and that's fine. It won't be a problem.
I'd say 1 to 2 to 3. We all have our own schedules, so I can't say that I can schedule around somebody else being there. But
Okay. I just want to know how it works, that's all. Okay.
So the way the schedule works is our agendas are published generally a week before the meeting. So we would have to have all that information submitted to the planning staff by Monday morning, the 19th, preferably even the Thursday or Friday before that, which means next Thursday or Friday, ideally.
I would propose a month.
Thursday.
I would propose a month.
Okay. We can do a month.
Just, yeah, probably a good idea, just to give us some cushion in case something else interferes with
There's
that. So-
vacations involved.
So I'd say date certain, 4 weeks out, Jeff?
So that would be Monday, August 9th.
Cool. We'll be back from Hawaii.
You'll be back, I'm not. Will we back? I am. You are, okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Tomlin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we'll cover for you.
We get back tonight, but I don't know what time, I guess.
We get back on the 6th because Patty's going to.
It's also our only item at this point.
Oh, she
People going out of town over there.
are you?
Might be.
Okay, moving along then to item
What?
5.
No, they won't do it.
5 is consideration of a development plan and regular coastal permit to create 2 additional rental dwelling units for a total of 4. Location of this project is 1913 South Tremont Apartments. The applicant is Betty Ling. So let's start with the disclosures. Commissioner Custer,
Read the staff report.
Commissioner Hayes.
The staff report and visited the site.
I read the staff report, visited the site. Vice Chair Morrissey,
Read the staff report.
Commissioner Bama,
Staff report, site visit.
and Commissioner Goodkind.
I visited the site and I read the staff report.
Thank you. Looks like Mr. Nightingale is our presenter tonight. Scott,
All right.
welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Chairperson Rosales, Planning Commissioners. I'm Scott Nightingale from the Planning Division, here to present Agenda Item 5 for the consideration of a development plan and regular coastal permit for 2 additional rental units. The development plan is to add 2 additional rental units and also demolish the existing 476 square foot 2-car garage located at the rear of the property to allow the construction of 4 new single-car garages access all the way of the alley. The 4 new single-car garages would provide the required covered parking for each unit. Unit 3, which would be one of the new units, would be comprised of 450 square feet, be a 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit. Unit 4, which would include 650 square feet, would be a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Each of these 2 units would have their own private balcony space, Obviously, they would need interior stairwells coming off the first floor. Part of this development plan is also to include a 95 square foot mechanical room, an 88 square foot laundry room, and a 35 square foot stairwell. And based on the site's location, they are asking for a regular coastal permit for the creation of the units. Here's an image of the existing site. The site is located at 1913 and 1915 South Tremont, situated within the South Oceanside neighborhood. It's also within the local coastal area, non-appealable jurisdiction. The site consists of a 66,000 square foot lot measured 60 by 100. And it is also zoned R3, residential multifamily, and it's surrounded by other residential multifamily properties and pretty much all around it. Kind of an eclectic neighborhood, consists of apartments and some older single-family homes, mostly rental units here. A little background on the site. Here's the existing 2 units that exist now. Unit 1, which is 1913 South Tremont, consists of a 880 square foot 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit. Here's an image off the front of the street. Unit 2, 1915 South Tremont, consists of 780 square feet, also a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And here's an image of the existing 2-car garage, which will be removed to enable the 4-car garage and the additional 2 units. And here's the layout of the site. So you have a garage accessed by the way of the alley and the 2 units to the east. The addition of the 2 units will result in a project with 4 dwelling units in total on site. And they will implement the goals and objectives of the general plan through compliance of density compliance. The project will also meet the required R3 standards in terms of all development standards, setbacks, lot coverage, and the required parking. Pretty much all of the development will occur all towards the rear of the property. 4-car garage on the bottom level with the 2 units on top, and the mechanical room and the laundry facility on the north bottom elevation. They will be providing an updated parkway landscaping, which will benefit the neighborhood tremendously. They provide 2 street trees within the parkway, as well as some low-lying ground cover and additional tree on site. Here's an image of the floor plan. The ground level elevation is here on the right. So you have the 4-car garage. They will be providing some EV hookup charging for potential EV charging facilities. As I said, the stairwell is located to the north for access to the second story. And then you have the mechanical room, also a storage room, located on the back there. And then here's the image of the second story. Provides access to the 1-bedroom, 1-bath, as well as the other new 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Here's an image of the elevations. It'll be consistent with what's existing on site. It'll be a 2-story elevation, which is consistent with majority of the developments in the surrounding area. It'll actually complement the site and enhance the property as well as the neighborhood. They're proposing somewhat of a craftsman style design. There's a few pop-outs and articulation, which will help break up the massing and the bulk and scale. So when reviewing this application, staff reviewed it based on the following. It achieves a balance of residential land uses, provides additional housing stock to a primarily multifamily rental area, provides a good transition between the high density and the single family that's in this area. The proposed residential units and the number of units is compatible with the allowable density. And it's in compliance with all development standards, height, bulk, scale, setbacks, and so forth, and parking. Being situated in the local coastal zone, there'll be no public coastal access impacts. All the parking will come off the alley, so it frees up the parking on the street. No public coastal views impacts, nor will there be any public parking impacts. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission by motion confirm issuance of the categorical exemption and adopt the resolution 2021-P26, approving the development plan and the regular coastal permit to allow the additional 2 units and the 4-car garage. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant representative is present, and they'll make themselves known. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. So actually, I just had a question. So having a 4-car garage actually gets cars off the street, right? So it's actually an improvement for the parking arrangement around there?
That's correct. So having all the access off the alley frees up the street. It's existing that way now, but they will be adding 2 additional parking stalls. The 2-car garage that they have now is actually non-conforming. It'd be pretty difficult to park 2 vehicles in there.
That's what I thought when I saw it. I thought they're probably not parking in there today, so. Okay, great, thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Goodkind?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Applicant, it must be you, sir, in the audience there. If you'd like to come forward, just say hello, or if you have a presentation, or make yourself available for any questions.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Steve Shackleton, the architect. The owner couldn't be here, and I just wanted to mention that we are maintaining the character of the old buildings on the site. They've been repainted and just slightly modified, but they've been enhanced already. So we feel like our building sort of acknowledges the look and the character. I kind of call it beach cottage. And we've just captured a few of those elements and reused them, the little gable roofs and the exposed posts and beam, kind of what we went with. It's actually a very simple project. It's modest, and the materials are modest, but I think they do capture kind of the neighborhood mass and scale. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address them for you.
I don't have a question. I have a comment, though, and I appreciate you acknowledging that your project's reflecting sort of the character of the older neighborhood there. We've seen the larger projects come through, and they provide good housing and whatnot, but they do change the character in some cases. I like that this maintains at least some of the original concepts for that neighborhood, so I appreciate that.
Great.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It's a public hearing, any comments or slips to speak on this item from the public?
Commissioner Rosales, Chairman, no, there's no public input on this one.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
So we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for discussion or deliberation, or seems pretty straightforward, but
I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we approve staff's recommendation per items 1 and 2 of the recommendation.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve this item as proposed by staff. Any second on that motion? Anybody? Commissioner Balma has provided a second to Vice Chair Morrissey's motion. Any other discussion? Don't see any. Okay, let's take a vote then. Commissioner Custer?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Balma?
Yes.
Vice Chair Morrissey?
Yes.
And Commissioner Goodkind?
I am a yes.
Thank you, and I too am a yes.
So will be recorded as 6 in favor, 0 against. The motion
Great.
passes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good luck with your project. We look forward to seeing it. Okay, next on the agenda is appeal of city planner's determination. We don't have anything listed under that, so we go to discussion items. I don't really have anything. I think you're going to talk about schedule city planner. I know that I'm going on vacation, but I think that probably won't interfere if our 2-week increments stay at the same pace. I think I'm good, so. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Vice Chair Morrissey?
No report.
No report from Vice Chair Morrissey. Commissioner Goodkind?
Yeah, I have a question actually for Mr. Hunt. I saw on Facebook that the historic greenhouse at the corner of South Freeman Street, and I think it's Surfrider, is being moved to Vista. Do you have any information about that? I think that the historic assessment probably determined that it couldn't be demolished, but I'm just curious.
I believe Scott Nightingale knows about that project.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Commissioner Goodkind, that project was approved for mixed-use development by the City Council because it's in the downtown zoning area. The house is being moved, from what I've heard from the applicant. They submitted a historical analysis which stated that the home was not deemed historic or held any historical significance, so they're able to move it. And from what I heard, I don't want to be quoted on this, but I heard that they're moving it to Vista as well. But I could double check and talk to the applicant and get back to you through email if you wish.
Okay. So the historic assessment said that they could demolish it if they wanted to, but they decided to move it instead.
That's correct.
Oh, okay. All right. I misunderstood. Thank you for that clarification, Scott. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Valma?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Hayes?
Nothing to report.
And Commissioner Custer? Great, thank you. That leaves City Planner. Jeff, what do you got for us tonight?
Your future agendas, July 26th, you have J&K Manufacturing and Distribution. This is a cannabis facility, medical cannabis, I believe, at this time, though they may change with our recent adoption of adult cannabis regulations. You also have an amendment to the tattoo zoning regulations, tattoo establishments. Right now, it requires 500 feet from a residential zoned district, and the city staff is proposing that if there's an intervening freeway, and they're specifically mentioned as 76, 78, or I-5, then that 500-foot would be no longer required. So we've got two applications that are running up against that requirement, and given the circumstances of our zoning ordinance where our industrial and commercial zones are long and linear that follow our transit corridors and commercial corridors, there's a lot of residential areas that butt up against them, and that's presenting some challenges for siting tattoo establishments. Also, recently, the Downtown Advisory Committee looked at changing their regulations downtown, and the discussion of tattoo establishments came up, and there was some strong opinions that the concerns with tattoo establishments are no longer as valid in this day and age. Things are changing. So that'll be coming to you on July 26th. At this point, we have no other items for August 9th other than the item that was just continued, so we'll see how that goes. We may come in just for one. I'll see if there's something else we can put on that agenda. The next item, the next date is August 23, and the general plan vision statement will be brought to this body for your comment and review, similar to what we did with the South Morro Hills framework. It's not a regulatory document, but by reviewing and commenting on it, and then it goes to the council, that informs staff on what we should draft for the general plan elements. We don't want to go down a road, spend a lot of time and money, and come back and, well, that's not what we wanted kind of idea. Council, August 4th, the 3 appeals for the Amazon project will be heard. Also a development at 806 North Cleveland. Council on August 18th will review that zoning amendment that I just talked about regarding tattoo establishments. September 1, they will review the J&K cannabis facility that I just mentioned. And then September 1 is scheduled for the CERC element amendment that this body voted on recently and recommended that, and you just changed the minutes to correct or revise, better reflect the motion on the CERC element. And then September 15th, the general plan vision will go to council. that I just mentioned. An item of note, the Buena Vista Lagoon Joint Powers Committee. We actually have a commission called the Joint Powers Committee. The Buena Vista Lagoon is split by Carlsbad and Oceanside. So they've had a Joint Powers Committee for quite a while now. It's always been rather informal. Based on the advice of our attorney's office, we're going to kind of upgrade that. So we're going to create a web page, put agendas and staff reports on it, just like we do. It will be very similar to the Planning Commission or Housing Commission webpage. So just a little bit of information for you and for anyone who's watching at home on TV. There's 2 subcommittees on that Joint Powers Committee, and one is involved with identifying projects to implement the environmental impact report. And if you'll recall, the EIR prefers a saltwater alternative, removing the weir or dam at St. Malo, coincidentally, and then letting nature take its course. And the other committee is vector control. Because of the weir and the backup of fresh water, cattails have grown up, and so they want to remove those cattails. Some people want to remove them right away. Ironically, the wildlife agencies have said, well, they are now habitat, and we have to go through a plan to incrementally remove the unwanted cattails. So that's our Buena Vista Lagoon Joint Powers Committee. Finally, on COVID, I sent everyone an email. You guys technically are employees of the city, but though I wouldn't wait for your paycheck if I were you. Or your benefits. No medical. But you're subject to our regulations. You have to fill out a Form 700. You're subject to our policies on no hostile workplace environment, no sexual harassment. Those kind of policies apply to you, as well as COVID policies. And so you should have received a form to fill out and send back to either HR or Yvette, who's the Development Services Administrator. You don't have to, but if you do fill it out and indicate that you are fully vaccinated, then you are not required to wear a mask at City Hall. Short of that, you are required to wear a mask at City Hall. At this point, it's the honor system. So if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need a mask in City Hall. If you're not fully vaccinated, you are supposed to wear a mask at City Hall, but it's the honor system. I'm not sure if that's going to change and they ramp it up. They're obviously compiling a list, and maybe they start distributing that list. They're still in the process of compiling that list. So that may change, and they may tell me I need to tell my staff, hey, I've got a list and you're not on it, those kind of things. I'm not sure where it's going to go. But anyways, that's it. The other changes regarding COVID is there's no longer any capacity limits in City Hall chambers, and there is still continuing discussions on the future use of Zoom. There's some people who are saying we should do away with it. It's not worth the trouble. It is an added burden. I won't say it's all that bad of a burden. I think there is some advantages and allows people to testify without having to drive down here for their 3 minutes and then drive all the way home, plus waiting around. So there is that ability. A number of cities are considering making it a permanent public access feature, but some cities are not because it is a burden. So we'll let you know where the council goes. We'll follow their lead in the future. As I understand it, the August 4th council meeting will still have Zoom. So at this point, Zoom has not been discontinued, but it could be in the future. So that's all I have.
Could I ask a follow-up question, Jeff? This is Robin.
Sure.
On the COVID policy, I must have misread the email that came from the city. I guess it was from you, and we were asked to submit our form. I thought it was a requirement that we were being asked to fill out this form and show proof of vaccination, and if not, then masks are required. Did I misread that? Or, because I filled it out right away and sent my vaccine information because I thought it was a requirement.
Well, I don't believe it's required that you fill it out. As I understand it, you have a choice, but if you do not fill it out, the city will assume that you're not vaccinated, and then you will be required to wear a mask. I have not been informed, and I manage and I'm staff to you guys, support staff, but I manage my own staff. I have not been directed by HR or my director to start enforcing that policy. As I understand it, it's the honor system at this point. That may change. I don't know.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Anything else?
Yeah, just one comment to Director Hunt. I think it behooves us to pay attention to our friends in Carlsbad are tasked to maintain the Buena Vista Creek. And I think that it's in Oceanside's best interest to make sure that that's all going on, because if that doesn't happen, then it does affect some of our property owners in the area. So I think that's, this Joint Powers Act, I think that's good, and I think we should take that seriously. And then second thing is I'm going to be on vacation from the 29th to the 9th.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
What were those dates again? I'm sorry.
29th, July 29th to the 9th of
August
August.
9th.
To August 19th. 9th.
Oh, I wish it'd be the 19th, but no such luck.
Okay, I think we're good.
I may also be out of town somewhere in that time period, depending on a lot of things. But I don't have anything definite, so.
Yeah, I would suggest that if you are going to be out, just send myself and Jeff an email.
Yeah.
That way we have a record and we're not surprised if you're not here, so.
I'm hoping to get back. I don't know when we get back on the 9th, because I want to be in that meeting, so I'll check that and let you know.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, it was really close earlier before the late arrivals came that we almost lost a quorum. So we don't want 3 people to come down here and staff to come up here and.
Sure.
Yeah, it was actually just me at 5 minutes to 6, and I thought I'd be running it by myself. Yeah. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
night.
Commissioner Goodkind.
Bye.